Alright, so episode 3 of The Acolyte. Where do I even start? We knew going into this episode from a few leaks that there was going to be some, let's say, questionable story decisions made that could really affect the lore in certain ways. But obviously, those were leaks. We didn't know how true those were actually going to be. So we had to find out for ourselves. And after watching that episode now, I think there's absolutely reason to be very frustrated with the direction that the show is now taking. For me, the biggest issue and the thing that is just completely unforgivable here is the whole thing regarding how Osha and May were conceived. We learned that Anastasia essentially created them through the Force, and that other witch happened to be pregnant with May and Osha based on what Anastasia did through the Force, of course. And I just have massive issues with that. First of all, you just can't do that in Star Wars. Like, you cannot create people from the Force. That's not how it works. That's not how the Force works, as Han would say. And then, of course, there's Anakin. Anakin, who was created by the Force. But that is a much different idea than what happens in the Acolyte here. And of course, it is Anakin. Anakin is the chosen one. He is the prophesized child. His story is the whole idea of Star Wars. So essentially, with Anakin, the way he was born, Plagueis and I think Palpatine, but it might have just been Plagueis, were kind of manipulating the Force, trying to make the Force go darker and working with it and stuff like that. The Force itself, however, retaliated against what Plagueis was doing, and the Force itself created Anakin. You know, the Force itself caused Shmi to be pregnant and to carry Anakin as retaliation against what Plagueis was doing. The Force creates Anakin to kind of bring balance to the Force eventually because of the stuff that Plagueis was doing to try to make the Force darker. So no, Plagueis does not directly create Anakin. I saw a lot of people saying that. They seem to get that wrong on both sides. People who do like the Acolyte, people who don't like the Acolyte. Plagueis does not directly create Anakin. It's the Force itself that creates Anakin based off of the retaliation of what Plagueis was doing. So it's not as if a singular entity, a singular person, a Force wielder created Anakin. It was the Force itself. Now, you might say that's why it's not a big deal that Anastasia created May and Osha and that Anakin is still the special chosen one, of course. But I still take issue with that because I think that if you're having any Force-induced birth like that, it's just not okay to be anybody but Anakin. Anakin can be the only one in Star Wars. That's what makes him special. In regards to his birth, obviously there's, further things that make him special based on his actions as the chosen one later in the story of Star Wars. But as far as his birth, he's the only Force-induced birth ever in the history of Star Wars. So I think May and Osha being created from the Force based on what Anastasia did is just completely disrespectful to the story that George Lucas created, completely disrespectful to Anakin's legacy, and I just take huge problem with that. I think that's a poor choice that they made for the Acolyte. And I think it absolutely breaks the lore in that regard. So that's the big argument for me. I think people also kind of made an argument about the Force and the way it was treated by these Coven of Witches. And maybe there was an argument that it breaks the lore in the way the witches describe the Force. They kind of describe it as this thread that they can pull on and connect with. But I don't really see that as a big issue. A lot of different Force groups have different views on the Force or interpret it in different ways. Obviously, there's the Night Sisters with magic, and the Zepho, they call the Force the Life Wind. They're all still the Force, so I don't really think there's a big issue with that. I think that one was a bit overdone based on the leaks. But beyond those specific issues, I think the episode itself was genuinely horrible. Like, I really did enjoy the first two episodes. I think they were a good start. They felt like Star Wars more or less, and I was genuinely intrigued. But episode 3 has to be probably the worst episode of live-action Star Wars that we have ever seen. The writing is horrible. The acting is horrible from most characters. Everything just looks so flat in regards to the lighting and the sets. It really makes you wonder how the show is worth $180 million. And don't even get me started on that stupid chant that the witches were doing. The whole power of one, power of two, power of many bullshit. Probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in all of Star Wars. So honestly, that's really all I really care to talk about with this episode. I have pretty much nothing positive to say about it. Hopefully this is the worst of the season, but I really don't know how you can come back from something like this in regards to the issues with disrespecting Anakin and George Lucas's story, as well as just how completely horrible the episode was in regards to filmmaking. But so that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.